Welcome to Totally Talent Podcast by HR.com, your go-to source for all things talent. Whether you're looking for expert insights on high-volume hiring, the latest trends in recruitment technology, or strategies for building a winning team, we've got you covered. Join us for each episode as we dive deep into the challenges and opportunities shaping the talent landscape today. Let's get started. Hey, everybody, this is Deb McGrath, CEO of HR.com and co-host of Totally Talent, and my co-host, Angie Verros.
Hello, everyone.
All the way from Greece.
I'm sorry?
All the way from Greece.
All the way from Greece. Yes. I'm a people person coming to you from Greece, and I am the CEO and founder of Via Talent, and I'm super, super excited to be here with my co-host.
Right. And today, as our guest, we have Shannon Pritchett. Most of you probably are aware of her, but Shannon, a quick bio of you, please.
Oh, man. Where do I get started? I've had so many jobs in this space. I guess I'll start there. I've worked every job within TA, from a sourcer to a recruiter to a trainer to a global leader to a conference host, community leader, to now head of marketing for HireEZ.
And it is truly a small world. We'll talk about our experience last week at HR Tech and how I was having breakfast with somebody, and they were trying to get into the show. And I said, oh, I know somebody who's got some passes. And of course, recommended Shannon, and she knew these people. So it was a very small world. So, but let's start not talking about HR Tech, which myself and Shannon were at last week. Let's start about talking about the sourcing industry and the history of big data, starting with our friends at LinkedIn and Intello, if anybody remembers our Intello, or was there somebody before Intello? But I've been here for 25 years, so I'm trying to think of who else there could have been.
They were definitely the first. There might have been like smaller geo fencing products, apps, and Chrome extensions, but I think they were the first like enterprise ready sourcing solution beyond LinkedIn Recruiter.
And what do you mean by enterprise ready sourcing solution?
Well, they're the first software like enterprise organizations could purchase and deploy throughout their teams. I think they were one of the first to start with the integrations as well. So they really paved the way for companies like ours and others to enter the industry. Before, there was a lot of like more sales products that some sourcers use, like Zoom Info and stuff like that. But prior to Zoom Info, I forgot what it was called. I'm blanking on the name. Data.com, I think it was. But I think they were the first software that was really focused on sourcers and finding contact information.
Yeah, it is interesting that these big data sets are coming up from both an application for salespeople and recruiters, but not necessarily the same use case of what they put over top of it to make it work, right? So, clearly a big winner in the sales industry was Zoom Info. And then, of course, in the recruiting industry, you have LinkedIn, which is everyone loves and hates, right? It's a love and hate story. So we're going to talk a wee bit about that. But tell us a bit about the history of HireEZ.
Yeah, HireEZ has been founded since like 2015. It started as Hire Teammate. It was one of those where our two co-founders thought, that they can do the job better than recruiters, right? There were two engineers from Samsung. They were humbled quickly. I think the first two iterations failed. I had the privilege of meeting them for the first time at my very first SourceCon conference that I executed. I've been going to SourceCon since probably its beginning, but the first one that I led was, I remember we were in the hallway. It was fall 2016, Anaheim, California. I saw this group of men walking down wearing these Hire Tool shirts. Couldn't really read them. They seemed overly eager. I'd never seen them before. They still got like sore thumbs. And they approached me right away. Like their mission was like to meet me. And, they were really excited about their product. I was really excited about technology. And so I was like, yeah, like, let me take a look at the tech. And I was like, wow, this is really good. So they asked me right away for some advice. And I said, you you really want to be successful in our industry, you have to become a recruiter yourself. You have to become a sourcer. Learn from them, sit with them, work with them, take their feedback, iterate their feedback, and just really kind of do this community approach. And they knocked it out of the park. They knocked it out of the park so much, actually, when I was at SourceCon, they became a case study on how to successfully market your product towards recruiters and sourcers, kind of like a bottoms up approach, which most companies have done the opposite. And I think they were the first company really to kind of humble themselves and really get down to that level where they really deeply understood what a sourcer and a recruiter go through from the day to day. And it's really cool. You got to talk to Stephen Zhang, our co-founder, but, he tells a story about how the first time that they, because I think it was like a year and a half before they started selling it. I think the first version was like $100, something like that. And like they quickly sold like immediately. And it just grew and grew and grew. About 2 years ago, we changed the name to HireEZ. Oh my gosh, wait, 3 years ago almost. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was part of Stephen and I's collaboration. We wanted a name that was a little bit more easy to pronounce, memorable, and we love the word easy. And so that's exactly what our mission is just to make it easier for recruiters to get the job done. So it's gone through several iterations from a sourcing tool to a full-blown CRM now. So it's been a fun ride. It was an easy choice for me to come on board when they were looking for new leadership. I was like, wow, well, they took my advice back then, and maybe they'll still do the same. But I love working here. It's fun. It's a challenge for sure.
So, Angie, you've known Shannon for quite a while too, right?
Yes, I have. Yes. This is my cue to ask questions or talk to Shannon a little bit. I remember Intello, just going back to what we said from the beginning, we had purchased it years ago when I was working at a company before I went off on my own. So I do remember that. And then the transition, or I guess I should say, all the changes since with HireTool moving over to HireEZ. I was fortunate enough to meet Shannon. I believe it was in my hometown in Chicago. You were at an event in Chicago. And I had heard about Shannon Pritchett. Oh my God, who is this woman? And I went up to her and I said, Shannon, I hear you're the new editor at SourceCon. I want to talk there. And you said, sure, no problem. So thank you for that. And just obviously such an easy and smart person to get along with and talk. And I guess what I would like to ask is in your history of all of these different career changes, now you're, in a marketing leadership role. How does it feel? I guess, did you feel like this was going to be it, right? Going from sourcing, Ronstadt, SourceCon, moving into these different areas, and now you're leading marketing and community efforts for, an amazing vendor. How tell me more.
That's a good question. I can't believe you described me as easy, because I think I I think like those closest to me, like my husband, would not describe me as easy. Yeah, she's a complex individual. A little rough around the edges. No, I'm joking. I never wanted to get into marketing. I actually, believe it or not, always kind of looked down on it because I really didn't understand it. It was one of those jobs that I'm like, like, oh, everyone can do marketing. What is marketing? You know what I mean? So I never saw this as a potential career or a pivot. Stephen called me to lead community, and within like 2 months of me leading community, he's like, I need you to be the next head of marketing. He's like, you can do two things with this company. You can become a future CMO, or you can become a head of community, which you are right now. And that was a no-brainer. I think I thought about it for I remember it's my first travel trip since the pandemic, June 2021, still very new into the pandemic. We had rented a house in Tampa, Florida to work out of. And I came over and we were sat in the living room. We had this conversation, and I think I took a call, and then came back, and I was like, I want to lead marketing. And then about a couple of weeks of training, and then I officially became the head of marketing about 2 months later. And I just really, it was just a leader that believed in me, that wanted to give me the tools. I called everyone I knew, and I learned that I know more about marketing than I give myself credit for. The best advice I ever received was hire people smarter than you, and they'll make you look good. And that was Jeff K told me that. He's like, you'll be fine, just hire smart people. But I really understand our ICP. And I think any recruiter who's been in the game as long as we have really understands their audience. And that's my strength. I'm not your traditional CMO by any means. I still deploy the community approach. My mission is to create demand through experiences, and experiences is what we define as community. What works at HireEZ will not work probably with other organizations or outside this industry. It's funny. I had so many high level CMO advisors that were able to teach me the technicality of the role. But no one really was able to teach me how to market. That's something I had to learn on my own. And luckily I had a company that's been really patient with me, that's gone through the peaks and valleys. But Angie and Deb, you know me so well. What I like most about this job is that I am by no means an expert. I'm a marketing leader with like 3.5 years experience, right? So I'm learning every day, every mistake, every pivot, every new employee. It's and I think I will keep learning for the next 30 years. So it keeps me on my toes. It keeps it exciting. And I don't know. I feel like I'm year 3 of my career. I really do.
Well, if you stop learning, that's the time you need to leave the industry.
Agreed.
Right? Because there's so many changes and improvements that are hitting the HR tech landscape as well as the recruiting landscape. And let's talk a wee bit about like these big data players that are coming out that are looking at sourcing. First of all, I think there's been a fundamental change in sourcing, right? With the current economy, with the availability of big data, like so many more companies having access to it. So what do you predict is the future for our sourcing friends?
Yeah. I've been writing a lot of articles about this, not a manuscript now. My provocative language is sourcing is dead. And what I mean by that is the way we've been doing sourcing is no longer relevant. I'm very knowledgeable when it comes to the history of our industry. And the role of a sourcer really didn't exist much prior to like 2010, 2011. And give credit where credit is due. I think LinkedIn created the sourcing job. Yeah. Now, some people listening to this will be upset, like, no, I was working for Microsoft sourcing in the early, 1990s or AT&T. Yes, you were. But your job was primarily focused on research, right? True sourcing that we know. What they were doing in the 90s, obviously the internet's gotten a lot better, is very different than we were doing today. So kind of LinkedIn changed the game. And I would bet that if somebody at LinkedIn's offices were thinking, wow, how can we sell more licenses? Well, we need to create more jobs. And that's exactly what they did. I remember these conversations with leadership back when I was a recruiter being like, LinkedIn's telling us to hire more and do this and do that. And we went along and did it. And not only that, they increased their prices 30% year over year, which is, great. So I think they've added so much value to our industry, but also we got to the point where we were oversaturated. So, incomes, 2021 post-pandemic, we all came out thinking we were behind, everyone overhired. We brought in a bunch of new people to the industry that had never worked in there before. We doubled the salary for each recruiter, but the way we do business never changed. And so I think HR and finance had a bullseye on recruiters' backs for about 5 years now. And when we got a little carried away with our hiring, that was a slow death of us. And so I'd like to see sourcing go back to where it was prior, to LinkedIn Recruiter, which was heavy research role. I think, automation is here, and automation is certainly going to take over exactly what we do. I made a career teaching a lot of people listening how to write Boolean strings, right? If you're still writing Boolean strings today, you are greatly
You're out of date,
extinct soon, right? So let automation do what it's meant to do. Let automation shine. However, you know, we're always going to need to hire people. And I think the real value of a sourcer is when you get away from the data and you focus exactly on what's not on the resume, right? Anyone can go to ChatGPT, create a resume, right? Anyone can go to ChatGPT, create a job description. Let the AI match. But there's so many things that a resume doesn't tell us about the individual. I personally hate resumes. Before I interview, I don't look at them. I don't care. My questions don't match what's on the resume anyways, right? I want to get to know the person. And if I have 10 plus years in this industry, I'll say 10 plus, and I don't use resumes when I hire people, then why are other people using resumes? That's a judgment for me. My questions are tailored so I can get to know the person, and I want to see sourcing find potential. I want to see sourcing find people that can't. I've been talking a lot how the need, like the greatest asset that I look for is hard work. And everyone says they work hard, but in
You
reality,
say that on their resume, does it?
well, everyone puts it on the resume. I'm a hard worker. Great. They have great interpersonal skills. So do we. But what questions are you going to be asking to really get to know someone? And the problem with where we are today is the sourcing that needs to happen that will keep jobs and better industries is not being measured. We're still focused on data in, data out, measure this, measure that, measure this. We're talking about Zoom Info earlier. Zoom Info is a massive corporation, and some recruiters use it. They actually have a recruiting product.
Yeah.
But do any organizations measure sales professionals by how they adopt Zoom Info? No. Right? Do any sales professionals write Boolean strings to find contact information? No. Right? And so we really need to pivot and shift on how we are measuring recruiters, measuring sourcers. I think heads of TA really need to start thinking about what their organization needs to look like and how to better define it. I'm pro having recruiting teams turn into marketing teams, and really my whole point is with sourcing is dead is let recruiters be recruiters, and let sourcing get back to what it was prior to LinkedIn, because that's all automated now.
So more about building the relationship, understanding what they're really looking for, finding the right people, quality of hire, as opposed to just having access to a database and getting butts and seats.
I'll pull LinkedIn's data against them. The number one demand for like the last decade from LinkedIn data has been quality of hire. Garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah. Angie, you actually own a sourcing business. So what are you seeing, and what are your comments about Shannon's?
Yeah. So look, I agree with Shannon on the sourcing piece as it being research, right? Because that really is what sourcing was. I worked for KPMG several years ago. I'm not going to give you my history. Well, I can. I've been doing this almost 20 years, so a little bit more than you, Shannon. And we were called research at KPMG. We weren't called sourcers, and we aided the recruiters in doing exactly that, research, finding out where candidates live, talent mapping, doing all of that stuff. So I don't believe necessarily that sourcing is dead. I do believe the form of sourcing that we've been doing is dead because of the way technology is now and the way that we have all these different tools. I do, however, believe that there are a lot of organizations that still need our help to help them find people, right? Which is our research piece. So maybe we'll have to rebrand ourselves that we're not, sourcing as a service specialist, because I think that was a very cliched term. But that's what I felt like we did well. We sourced when people needed that service, and we helped companies bring in, talent pipelines, shortlist, candidates, or full life cycle, whatever they need. And we still do that. But I think the mentality has changed a lot. And at the very end of the day, when we're going to hire people, or when our clients are going to hire people, they want to talk to people. So I do believe AI, automation, augmented assistance is going to be the new way, or not really, it's been the way of sourcing. And again, let recruiters do their job. Let them market, let them have these conversations. You're not going to hire someone with a chatbot, and you're not going to hire someone. You might be able to pre-screen certain people, but then again, that will eliminate some people who don't have the keywords on their resume. So there's so many things that, that we're looking at. So I still firmly believe that a little bit of old school still works. I am a little bit of old school. I still do a little bit of Boolean. I'll use ChatGPT, and I'll use Claude, and I'll use all those perplexities and all those things. But at the end of the day, I check against what they do, because they're not always right. And we use the human approach. Like, we're very, very human. We pick up the phone, we call, we're a little more old school. So I think a mix of all of that will help, but we will have to evolve as well. I think all sourcing companies, recruiting companies, even internal recruitment teams will have to evolve based on all of the new stuff. And to Shannon's point earlier, I don't know the newest things because, I'm getting older and I'm not that tech savvy, and I don't remember some of the things. But I will hire smarter people. And that's been a motto of mine for many, many years. I'd rather be the dumbest person in the room as opposed to the smartest person in the room, because I could always learn from someone. So I'm not even sure and I went on a little tangent, but I don't believe it's 100% dead. I think it's evolving.
Yep.
And feel to challenge me, Shannon.
No, I completely agree with that, and that's kind of like what I was saying. It's like, sourcing's not going to look the same moving forward. And who's going to give the recruiters and sourcers the ability to have those conversations? If you've listened to myself and Glenn Cassie talk for a while, like if you're an old school listening to this conversation, Glenn wrote an article, I don't know, too long ago, and Boolean Black Belt. And I've seen him deliver this presentation, and I took what I learned from him and I cloned the term reverse sourcing, right? Which is looking for people that we often eliminate. And if you view sourcing at what it's actually doing and what the intention of Boolean actually is, it's actually eliminating people. Right? It's a needle in a haystack approach, right? How do you get to someone faster? Well, you have to cut through keywords and, all that kind of stuff. And myself, I'm not going to speak for Glenn, but I talked to him about this about 2 weeks ago. I view sourcing as eliminating. You're eliminating people, you're eliminating information, you're trying to find that one person that matches, right? Well, if you get rid of that concept of eliminating and start thinking of how can I include more people, which I think is tough for a lot of recruiters and sourcers to understand, right? That's where the quality piece really comes in, is how are you going to find these conversations? How are you going to start networking? We've always made fun of recruiters and sourcers for saying, hey, I got a job. If you're interested, if you don't, who do you know, right? It doesn't work, right? That no one feels special. But seriously, finding a good candidate and saying, wow, you're perfect. We all know job is about timing. How many times have you found the perfect absolute candidate that will get hired, but they're not ready to make a move, right? Like, David offered me the SourceCon job 3 times over the span of 6 years before I finally accepted, because the timing wasn't right. And that was a perfect job at the right time. But who is like that person, and who do they know, and tapping into that, right? Are any sourcers having conversations with internal employees, right? It's like, my first aha moment was
not enough of them.
Yeah, right. My first aha moment was when I was at Community Health Systems, my last actual recruiter job. And I remember like getting a position that just didn't make sense. Like, I was just like, this is like, I don't know how I'm going to find this person, right? Thank you for the unicorn qualifications. So I said, can I see the previous resume of the person who was doing this job? And it did not match at all what they were looking for. So I started pushing back. Well, how did you find this person? How did you come about? And they told me, and I was like, okay, so this is actually the background that I need to look for. And then I sat with the team for a couple hours, right? This was like a web developer type position, or no, it was a testing position on the web development team. And I kind of learned the make and model of the team and, kind of where they came from. And that was the foundation for what I needed to successfully actually go out and find someone. And if I wouldn't have spent so much time, then I don't think I would have been able to kind of get to know the team, ask them those questions. And by the way, the position was filled through one of those referrals. I tried through LinkedIn Recruiter and all those other great, tricks, that were up my sleeve back then. But ultimately, it was having the right conversations and trying to find the right person through referrals. And this person wasn't on LinkedIn. They weren't on job boards. They weren't on anything like that. But and guess what? The resume did not match what the hiring manager was looking for. My last hire, I remember I've known him for years. And he's been wanting to work for me and HireEZ for a very long time. And he knows our company well. And he was applying for all the wrong jobs. And I finally told him, like, just wait till the timing is right. When I was writing this job description, I had this person in the back of my head, but I was going to wait and wait a week and then reach out to him. Within the hour of me posting it, he calls me, hey, what about this one? Let's have alerts or something. I don't know. I never really asked him. I was like, yeah, yes, I actually thought of you when I was writing the job description. And so we had a conversation. I did my best to give him a realistic overview of what I expect and try to scare him out of it. He was still interested. So I passed him over to the recruiter, and the recruiter right away said no. I'm like, you're going to say no to the person who's hiring this person? She goes, what you told me is not on his resume. And I was like, how do you know? She said, well, I'm reading it. I was like, well, have you had the conversations? And this is like my best recruiter. Like I request her every time. She's good. And she was like, no, well, I guess I can have a phone screen. And I was like, I think you should have a phone screen. And then a couple days later, after she had the phone screen, she was like, you're right, this person's absolutely perfect. And so it just, goes to show you, like, and again, this is somebody AI would have eliminated, right?
Yeah.
Or not even found.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because I think this is a good topic. And I think that a lot of sourcers and recruiters have this type of issue. So you said it spot on. What you had this conversation with Glenn, who I've had the same conversation with him many times, and I've seen his presentation with process of elimination. So you do this very, very tight Boolean string, or you use whatever tech today, and you eliminate the people that you probably should not be eliminating because they don't have those certain keywords on their resume or on their profile or whatnot. How do you get it? I think recruiters and sourcers are frustrated when they find someone like that, and then they go to their hiring manager and they say, this is the perfect person. Why? Because I talked to him, and they look at the resume and they're like, yeah, but this person, they don't do the job. So I think a lot of that is causing the sourcers and recruiters to then do their searches, however they do it, so that they could really target exactly what the hiring managers are looking for. And I think that's been a hurdle that a lot of people can't overcome. So how do you do that? How do you pressure, I guess I should use the word, your hiring managers to look at someone that you firmly believe in because you've had that conversation? Notice the human piece, right? It's not technology. You're talking to these candidates. I've seen it day in, day out where my hiring managers say no because they can't do the job. Well, how do you know? Because I looked at their resume. Like, doesn't that, you can tell, it frustrates me.
This was in the article that I recently came out with called Stop Sourcing. And Glenn and I had this conversation, and he was like, you really need to have that in-depth conversation to better understand. Like, there's always going to be a human that's going to have to describe what they want, right? But however, let automation find the easy matching part of it, right? But what are like when I say reverse sourcing, I mean, okay, so do the exact opposite of what everyone else is doing. Yeah. If AI finds somebody, great. And it's your open position, perfect. But the real value is what you're going to bring to that. And looking for someone that doesn't match the status quo in terms of like the exact things listed on a resume. Yeah. And or the job description resume match. And so that's like the real value that a sourcer recruiter can find. And you got to bring the market intelligence and all that data to the hiring manager, right? I have an open position that just was open today, and my HR team brought me all these stats from HireEZ about, the probability of us being successful with my qualifications and stuff like that. And I always tell them the same thing. I'm like, I don't really care about years of experience. I don't care about qualifications. Find me the right person, and then I'll put them in the bucket. It's like, but HR needs to legally, put all this stuff on there. So, but I want to push back, not really the recruiter or the sourcer, right? Because like I feel like the workflows for a recruiter and sourcer match how they're being measured, and rightfully so. Because I've known some very talented sourcers in our space who should survive this apocalypse, who have been fired for not adopting a piece of technology the way it's intended to be adopted, right? Instead, it's more like the TA leaders, like we just said, need to let recruiters be recruiters. How are they going to start measuring recruiters and sourcers for going against the status quo, giving them the opportunity, right? I've heard so many really good recruiters and sourcers recently tell me, oh yeah, my best day is when it's packed full of phone screens. I'm like, that sounds like the seventh layer of hell. That's your best day. But guess what? They're probably being measured on all of that. The number of screens. I see that as potential. Okay, you like having conversations with people. You like getting to know people. Your job title's a sourcer. Probably should be more of a recruiter, but like, let's get out of the phone screens and let's go out and try to have these conversations and actually find people.
Yeah.
Right. When I was a call center recruiter, my favorite thing, I was younger. I like to go out to the bars, the clubs, you know, as you do when you're single and mingling. And I carried around business cards for the call center I worked at. And anyone with good customer service, like I remember every time I would go to like use the bathroom and they had the bathroom attendants in there, right? And they're like helping you wash your hands, trying to get the tips. Maybe it's because I was a little cheap and didn't carry a lot of cash on me. I don't remember. Like I think we all, how much money can a call center recruiter make, right? Yeah. Now divide that by 2. That's what I made. I would give out my business cards if somebody was actually hustling and doing well. I would do it for bartenders. I would do it at Target, grocery stores, like anywhere where I saw good service, right? And I was a call center recruiter and sourcer, right? And it was like, how are you sourcing call center? And I was like, I was out there in the community, like, right? And I hired
You got your community experience.
right? Like in the bathroom.
But it works. I think anybody who's in the service industry is a hustler. I came out of the restaurant industry and I've hired people and turned them into sourcers because they were hustlers. They had grit. They wanted to learn and they were curious. And I think those are really great traits. Now, show someone a resume of a barista or a server who wants to become a sourcer, and hiring manager will nix them immediately, right? Unless you're having these types of conversations. So I give people a shot. I still have people on my team that I hired that had zero experience. And they helped me grow the business, but they wanted to learn and I gave them a chance. So that's where AI doesn't come in.
No,
I think what we're learning is that you have to build the relationship with the hiring manager and they have to trust you.
Yes.
So when you give them a candidate who doesn't necessarily fit on paper, they have to know that this is going to be a good person.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And it's also, I think, and it also works with the candidate. Just because a candidate isn't interested today, we're pipelining. We're doing a project right now for a bunch of engineers, and we have over 150 candidates that did reply to us that said, "Thank you, but I'm not interested right now. Let's stay in touch."
Yeah.
Well, you bet we've got them in a database where we will reach back out to them in 3 months or in 6 months, because why the need to go out and find more people when we have the people that were interested at one point? So the relationship building is 100% key. And I think that sometimes newer sourcers are being taught, maybe this is a misconception, but are being taught, let's just find the people. And if they're not interested, the recruiters take that, onwards. Let's find more. Let's build lists. Let's scrape. Let's do. And then they don't care. I shouldn't say they don't care. They do care, but that's what they're taught to do, is just to build the lists, build the pipelines. And then after that, they have nothing to do. I mean, how many times do we say, let's look at the people that are in our ATS, right? That's probably a whole other conversation, but there's millions or hundreds of thousands of people in ATS that we never go to this place. We never go to.
And if you actually, again, go through your ATS, right, and look at the people who have done the job before, they're not matching the resumes you're looking for today.
Exactly.
You're wondering why your position is staying open longer if you're finding people with the exact qualifications, right? Because you're not having not asking the right questions.
Yeah.
When I say I want to see like recruiters, recruiting teams start to look like marketing teams, right? It goes back to what I said earlier. It's all about timing. Like one thing I learned about selling software is you cannot force somebody to buy. Deb, right? I mean, you cannot force somebody to buy. They will buy when their budget's approved, when they're ready, stuff like that too. If our product was free, I think everyone would use it. Absolutely. If LinkedIn was free, everyone would use it, right? It's like, right? But when you put, a big price tag at the end of something, there's a process that needs to happen in order for that to take place. And marketing can do the best that they can, and sales can do the best that they can. And the reason why, we focus so much on getting our product out or getting our brand out there, so to speak, is to increase the likelihood that the timing is right. The reason why I do experience-based marketing is to build trust. Let people come to us. We have 30,000 people that come to us each month to do Outbound Recruiting Academy, right? They're interacting with my brand on a daily basis, right? They're getting something out of this. I'm getting something out of this, right? We don't sell to anyone who does it, but they know HireEZ. I want people to associate HireEZ with being helpful, right? Yep. So then when they want to purchase software and the timing is right, sales has these conversations for months with someone before they finally pull the trigger. And when they get to sales, that is now the likelihood that they're ready is getting closer and closer, right? If they're not ready, but they're looking at us, our sales team doesn't talk to them. They have a quick conversation, then they move on to the additional prospects. How is that different than recruiting? It's not. What are we doing, right, to keep candidates engaged with us, interacting with us, like knowing who we are, building trust, building those relationships. So when the time is right, they can come to us when it's ready. Like recruiting has been reactive ever since I got in this industry. Yep. I have known few proactive sourcers, right? I think Jim Schneider, when he used to present at SourceCon, and he was talking about using a CRM, was the most mind-boggling thing for me, because I'm like, there are like 25 people in the world that can do the job that Jim's looking for, and he just engages them and waits for that position to open up. Like, like it's the same thing as like executive recruiting, right? Like anyone can look for a CEO and email blast CEOs, but that's not how it gets done. So, it's like, that's what I want people to start thinking of. Like, that's adding value, right? That's a representation of your brand. There's no one better that can do that than recruiters and sourcers today. The strongest community amongst them. And it's like, if they just replicate that model for job seekers or potential job seekers or people, they will be so much more successful. I don't know anyone who's actually doing that, though.
Yeah,
people say they are, but nobody.
Yeah, that's the problem. I think we as recruiters are looked at transactional, reactive, right? It's just a transaction. Let's fill the seat, and that's it. And but everybody is looked at like that. So how do you completely change the mindset? How do you go and you tell someone who's not Jim Schneider that you need to go out there and build relationships, not just fill roles, but the person who's hired to fill roles is getting getting measured on numbers of screens. So how can you entice that person to go and build relationships when they have to screen 34 people a day, right? Like it's a double-edged sword.
It's not the IC, it's a leader.
Yeah.
It's like, and guess what? If a head of TA said, I'm going to restructure my team, we're going to go this whole new process, we're going to build community, stuff like that. First off, you're not going to see a decline in hires through this approach, right? Like vast majority of people still come in through inbound tactics, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Restructure your team, restructure functions, right? I'd have an SEO person, I'd have a paid ads person, right? I would have a massive content team. There's so many different, like email marketing, right? It's like everything recruiter does, a marketing team also does, right? Yeah. But we're just, and guess what? Marketers make half of what recruiters make, right? And the reason is because like, it was just so weird. There's a formal education for marketing and training and a status quo, yet they make so much less than actual recruiters, which is a very transactional job. It blows my mind. But what I'm trying to say is like, recruiters should be able to transition easily. I don't see anyone that I know struggling to make that change. I think it's leadership. And they don't know, and they don't know how to think like this. They don't know how to identify. They don't know how to pull the trigger. The conversations I'm having with TA leaders know they need to start eliminating recruiters. They want, and they're starting to think like, okay, will this model actually work? but that's a very small portion within our industry. I think that we need to start thinking about like doing things a little bit differently. And I've seen a lot of former TA leaders in our space that have gone on to do different jobs that I know were starting to do this. And then, someone else snapped them up and now they're in HR or talent management or on the software side. And so, I'm ready for that case study of someone who's going to be successful doing it. And I hope it happens soon, but it's really on leadership because recruiters are agile. We got grit. They have hard work ethic, right? They know how to survive. And the bad ones will just get eliminated, which is fine. But I think the bad ones are a very small minority. So I think this is, and we're talking about having conversations with people. It's not hard to do.
No.
That's really good insight. So last week, both Shannon and I were at HR Tech in Vegas. It was a very, very busy trade show floor with about 500 exhibitors there. Lots of clients that seem at a high level competitive to kind of what you guys do. A lot of more big data players than I ever anticipated. How do you tell the difference between what they all do?
Well, I have been in this industry long enough to know that anyone who comes in to this industry or has tried to come in over the last like 2 or 3 years, that's cloning what other companies do, they will be gone within 2 or 3 months. It's like, when you look at the main data players, and we don't consider us a data player anymore. We consider us a data utilizer. Like we don't sell data, we get teams to better use data. It's just like, there's so much opportunity in our space, I feel like, but I feel like 90% of the new companies just try to do what somebody else is doing. And
yeah, but I think there's a fundamental shift between companies with all this big data and they're packaging it, but it's their secret sauce that sits on top of it that makes it unique or special.
Yeah.
Right. So we've seen some that have normalized all this data for employment equity and diversity. We've seen others that really focus on education markets or healthcare markets. So they add more filters or more capabilities or functionality around that specific to an industry or a job role. But it's very confusing, I think, for buyers.
it's very confusing. And I often think price becomes the factor of how people purchase things, and reputation. But I think it's so important to have good quality conversations with actual leadership at that organization, right? Because marketing and sales will tell you what you want to hear to get it done. But I want to challenge every buyer out there to actually have a conversation with a CFO or a CEO or a CTO and actually understand their mission and vision. I think the companies that do right by their customers and treat the customers well are the ones that are going to win regardless of how good their technology is, because people want that sense of security. People want that sense of trust. My favorite clients, the ones who have been most successful for us, are the ones that are very demanding, challenge us, are not afraid to send the CEO an email when they don't like the way something is, or to call our CTO and say like, hey, what if we did something like this? Right. And those are the ones we want because they're invested. And when I look at technology as a marketer, I make investments in what I want to buy. There's a big difference between purchasing and investing. Like I'm currently putting headcount on hold to purchase a new product instead, right? Because that's an investment. I think that's what we want. We want people invested in their time, their money, their resources, and their teams. We're one of the few companies that are like, we have too many customers. We have way too many customers, right? And guess what? We have a lot of customers that aren't invested in us. And maybe they're successful, maybe they're not. But again, and it doesn't matter the dollar that you're spending. If you're it does to a certain level, but I've seen companies be very successful, very invested in their time that spend a little bit, but those are the ones who make us better. And that can start as a buyer. And I think that's how you narrow it down. You really do, is you go with that company that ultimately you trust at the end of the day, and you want to invest as if it was your own money into that product. I say that all the time. Would I spend my own money on this? And it makes you look at things differently. Like if this fails, would $50,000 be deducted from my paycheck? That's the risk I want to take. And that's the risk my boss expects me to take, right? And we hope our customers do the same.
At HR Tech, did you see anything new or exciting?
No.
But
But that was because I was in my little 40 by 20 bubble, which was the
It was a
hiring.
nice booth, though. A beautiful
you.
booth, very
Thank you.
inviting.
So I walked around, I visited a lot of our customers that were on the floor, and had great conversations with a lot of our competitors. We're all frenemies, I guess you can say. We're like friends. We're all trying to have the same goal at the end of the day. But I didn't see anyone doing anything new and cool that just like blew my mind. But I also didn't have that much time. I asked people and they're like, oh yeah, there's tons of companies. Well, which one? Nobody gave me one. So I didn't really go by and see them. But was proud to see, what's the name of Master Burnett's company win the Pitch Fest and stuff like that. So like, yeah, I like seeing stuff like that. So then
we've been in the space for a long time, finally doing really good stuff, right?
Good stuff. And we intentionally always have a booth near the Pitch Fest stage. And that's because, I think it should be one of the more popular sessions at the conference.
Well, and his solution, which Angie, we should get on the show, was really focused on the hiring manager, right? So we talked a lot about that in the first part of this episode, about how to prep the hiring manager better. And I think it's the first piece of software we've seen that does that. So it's good.
Yeah. And it's such an opportunity for anyone who wants to get in the hiring manager space. It is, I think that's going to be the next category that will exist within our space that I think needs more of an investment. And that could be labeled as HR tech. Absolutely.
Yeah. I will tell you one thing from a hiring manager perspective. Well, we're not a product, we're services, but more to come on that. We, when we partner with our hiring managers and we do what we do, build a relationship with them, those are our best clients. And I'm not saying that, having a recruiter or a TA leader be our main point of contact is bad for us, but they shouldn't hinder our ability to have the relationship with the hiring manager because we know exactly what the hiring manager wants. We have straight communication with them. And so when our clients trust us and put us in the hands of hiring managers, that's when we do our best work. And it really, really is important. I've been talking about the hiring manager for the longest time from a third party perspective, right? So how do we gain their trust to let us talk to their hiring managers? And I think that is so critical because we will get the job done if there's no barrier. But then again, there's the TA leaders and our TA friends who we're not saying they're doing a bad job. They're just, I don't know if it's a control thing or if it's, I don't know. But I will have to say that the hiring manager communication and relationship is critical, regardless of what your relationship is in doing the work. 100%. So yeah, I'm gonna check out the new product.
We had a hiring manager that was so difficult. Like oh my gosh, he was like the longest serving VP or SVP at our company in the IT department. Everyone was scared to work on his positions and stuff like that too. And I remember my job, I was a brand new hire, new headcount. And my job was to eliminate staffing. That's how I was going to pay for my position. And so we had 110 staffing firms that worked for community health systems at the time. I narrowed that list down to like 8, put them on VMS. And any full-time position or stuff like that was supposed to go through recruiting teams. But this one manager who, by the way, the more mean you are, the more hardcore, the more I'm going to gravitate towards you. I just love that kind of like personality and stuff, And as I got to know him, there was this one staffing firm who was kind of newish in the space that this hiring manager loved and trusted. And I later learned that he wasn't even, and by the way, whatever this hiring manager did, he got like the whole company was like, this guy's good, just let him do his thing. He wouldn't even interview the candidates that were being sent him from the staffing firm. Exactly what you just said, Angie, because there's that level of trust and commitment, and everyone came on as either a contractor or contract to hire. And so after spending some time with him, and he had the largest team in the whole entire company, with him and also the staffing firm, I backed off. I was like, you do you. And this staffing firm, literally, not only did they have such a good relationship, they got into the training business. And so they would train the new hires that were coming in as well. And they were just passing them over. And I thought that was such a beautiful relationship. And I was like, you got a hiring manager that knows what he wants. You got a vendor that knows how to give it to him. And it worked out well, and no issues, no ever issues from this vendor, from the manager, from personnel on his team, right? They got it done. And I was like, oh, that's how it ended.
Yeah,
2010.
it's the relationship. I remember when I was at KPMG, I remember doing training, and they would say, we don't care at the end of the week if you don't have candidates for us. My hiring managers would say to me directly, they would say, I just want an update. Tell me that you have an update. Give me an update of what you're working on, whether you have candidates or not. So what's the key issue here is communication, right? So you communicate directly with the hiring managers, build a relationship, build the trust. My best clients are my hiring managers, and I've talked to them offline, and I've said to them, they've said, we've requested for HR to not work with you directly. We want to work with you directly because we built that relationship. I mean, for me, how great is it when my hiring manager for my client sends me a text message and asks me questions, or we have that relationship about, I think I'm going to move forward with this candidate. What do you think? And yes, I want the hire, but I turn around and I say, no, you shouldn't move forward with this candidate for reasons A, B, and C. So bottom line, it is the relationship and it is the trust. And I think that we need to continue saying that to people to continue building these relationships. We are not transactional, period.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. And so in our closing remark, what's the future for the sourcing community? We talked about it being dead, but I see a lot of opportunities for them here, right? I see them to go into other job roles that are similar. I see them to spend more time with hiring managers to get better at that job, to add more value.
I think the future is the phone, having those quality conversations. And don't sleep on employer branding.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Angie, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just go back to some basics, just the common sense. The relationship building is critical, especially in today where everything kind of gets lost in technology. A tool is only as good as the person who uses it, right? And people still, I know that's so
the tool still full. My favorite Rob Gosh quote.
Talking to people. I like talking to people. I like when I can call someone and they pick up the phone, or I can send a text message. I think that's the future. I think it will evolve. I think a lot of sourcers are leaving the space and going in to become marketers. I know some people, we probably know the same people that went in to become data analysts and go into some engineering. Yeah.
I saw them actually showing up as sales reps in vendor companies. So
Exactly. Or they go into, 100%. They go into sales or they move into something else. Why not? If you could do that, or marketing, right? My degree is in marketing. I got a degree in marketing. Then I became a stockbroker. Go figure. Marketing is every day.
And Deb, you've hired recruiters and transitioned them as well. And I think that like what HR tech needs is more recruiters. And I tell this to people all the time, because guess what? You can add so much value to any software company that's out there.
Yeah.
And challenge any tech vendor, think about.
And I do think, a lot of our bigger players like the LinkedIn's, the Oracle's, SAP Workdays, they have not nailed the TA experience.
No.
Because they don't have the product people in who were recruiters or sourcing experts.
Yeah.
So there's a big opportunity there as well. So
I know that's what Chris Habrilla is trying to do with Oracle. And so that was such a good hire. So but I've been waiting. Because I know how brilliant she is. So that company is. So I'm that's one company out of those three I'm watching closely.
Yeah, I do think that they do, like you see Workday acquiring other companies in this space to build out their product suite. I think you'll see more acquisitions come out of the Oracles and SAPs and some of the other large ERP players to get them up to speed. So
I hope so, actually. I really do. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Great.
one final, before we go, I do have one final comment question. And I know it's probably something that a lot of people are asking out there with the way the space is now, right? Recruiters, sourcers, TA leaders still experiencing layoffs. I do see an uptick on LinkedIn with people getting new jobs. I guess I would like to ask you too, Deb and Shannon, where do you think it's going? Do you think we're nearing the end of this apocalypse or whatever people are calling it? Do you think that 2025 will be better or worse? I would just love generally your thoughts.
I think the U.S. Is very vulnerable, but very resilient, right? It doesn't seem to matter what you throw at them, they survive. With the election coming up, there is going to be a winner, and I don't think it's going to make a difference between who wins as to what the state of the economy will be. I think a decrease in interest rates is going to have a bigger impact. More people getting rid of debt will help, or cheaper debt. And immigration in the U.S. is actually a vital component that needs to spend some more time and effort on that. But I'm worried about the world and something else hitting us, like a COVID or another war, that we don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
And I think the whole world is vulnerable right now. So
I agree with that. Yeah, I would say this is our new normal. I think everyone was hoping this year would, pan out a little differently, but I think we're living in our new normal. And so, but my goal has always been, let's get back to 2019.
that was a great year. I do see stuff that says, oh, it hasn't been this good since 2019, or it's like 2019. It's like 2019 was pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Let's go back there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be fantastic.
Okay. Back to the future.
Back to the
In
future.
the next episode. Thank you for your time. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Totally Talent podcast by HR.com. We hope you find today's episode insightful and inspiring. Don't forget to explore more episodes and discover valuable resources at hr.com/podcasts, where you can listen to all of our podcasts. Until next time, keep leading with purpose and making a difference in the world of talent.